Okay. So today's Rosh Chodesh. So you disappeared, Corina. So, okay. So you don't have.
Still here.
You can come back. Okay. So it's Rosh Chodesh, Menachem Av, and it's the beginning of the 9 days. It's the beginning of this incredible month of Av, which has different characteristics, different aspects of it. The month of Av contains in it the day that's the most difficult, serious day for us, the 9th of Av, and it also has the most joyful, happy, almost like one of the high points of all the days of the year, Tu B'Av, and they both come in this month of Av. So Av contains the deepest of despair in a way, and at the same time, in that despair, we know the Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av, that there's the seeds of redemption within it, and it also has Tu B'Av, which is a day of great joy and celebrating and happy day. So we'll just read from the Hayom Yom a couple readings. So the reading for Rosh Chodesh Av is the unique quality of Mashiach is that he will be humble, though he will be the ultimate in greatness and will teach Torah to the patriarchs and to Moshe Rabbeinu, alav v'shalom. Nonetheless, he will be the ultimate in humility and self-nullification, teaching even simple folk. So the first idea that we're starting with is that we're waiting for this leader, this person who's going to speak so everybody's going to hear him. He's going to have a unique voice that worldwide Jews and non-Jews are going to listen to. But at the same time, this personality is the ultimate in humility. So it says here, he, and it's interesting to just contemplate on the personality of Mashiach. Do we know for sure it's going to be a man? Do we know for sure that it's not maybe a couple? Could we even contemplate the idea that maybe it's not a man? Is that even possible? Whoever it will be, it'll be somebody who is great, will be able to teach Torah not just to the likes of us, but can even teach Torah to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe. So that's kind of amazing, because we would think that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov would know Torah so well. What could the Mashiach possibly teach them? But the Mashiach would be somebody who comes to be in our world, who has our challenges, who has our struggles. And Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov come from a time long gone, and somehow the Mashiach would have information and insight and understanding that he, she, they would even be able to teach that the Avot and Moshe Rabbeinu would even be able to learn from this new teacher that's going to come into being in the world, who might in fact be a reincarnation of personalities who've lived in the past, whether that person is Moshe Rabbeinu or whoever, but this person would have a contemporary life because they would be alive in our world. So they would have information and understanding that would relate to what we know now, and even be able to teach Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which is a pretty awesome kind of idea. The next piece from Hayom Yom that I wanted to share is from Hayom Yom that's for 2 days' time, the 3rd of Menachem Av. And the Rebbe writes that from my father's sichot, so I guess this was the previous Rebbe wrote, from my father's sichot, when Mashiach will come, and it should be speedily in our day. Hi, Liz, welcome. then we shall really long for the days of exile. When Mashiach comes and things have kind of changed, then we will truly feel distress at our having neglected working at avoda. Avoda is the kind of work that we do that helps us be close to Hashem, refine our personalities, evolve, be more connected to our neshamas, all of that. When Mashiach will come, then we will really long for the days of the exile. Then we will truly feel distress at our having neglected working at our avoda. Then we will indeed feel the deep pain caused by our lack of avoda. These days of exile are the days of avoda, to prepare ourselves for the coming of Mashiach speedily in our time. So my understanding of this teaching comes about in a way from my experience with COVID and the lockdown, that in the beginning, when we were all locked down and we didn't know how we would be able to go shopping, would we, did we have enough supplies? Did we have our toilet paper? Did we have all of our things? So there was a certain period of time when we were completely just, staying at home and feeling like whatever we've got, whatever clothes we've got, whatever supplies we've got, whatever, things we have in our home, that's what we're going to have to use until we can get more stuff. But for the meantime, we weren't sure for a while if we could get more stuff or not. And it is an interesting thing that at a certain point, you got to just say, this is what I've got, and I can't go out and go shopping. I can't get more stuff. I mean, we can with Amazon and such, but I've got to just use what I have. And in terms of Mashiach, when it comes to building ourselves and working on ourselves, once Mashiach comes, things change a lot, and sort of what we've accomplished till that point, that will be it. The opportunities to overcome temptation, overcome our own Yetzer Hara, it'll be very different. And so we'll kind of be in a different point. It's like what we accomplished, as much as we've refined ourselves and worked on ourselves, that's kind of who we're going to be to some extent. So then it says, then we'll yearn for the days when we could actually do the work. We'll wish that we did more work. It's like when Shabbos comes, whatever you've cooked, whatever you've prepared, that's what you enjoy. And you just think, oh, I wish I would have gone shopping and, put more things in my freezer. So I'm just going to pause it for. So the question is, hi, Shoshana. So the question is, what is the ETA for Mashiach? Because we started off with some Hayom Yom references to Mashiach. We said, number one, Mashiach is going to teach Torah to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu. So he's, this persona of Mashiach is going to be so wise and have the ability to relate Torah to our generation, to realities in our time, and be able to teach that to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but at the same time be so incredibly humble. And we also said that when Mashiach comes, we're going to yearn for the days before Mashiach, when we would feel like, oh my gosh, just like on Shabbos, we say, I wish I would have gone shopping, because now I don't have, my bananas, and I don't have my lemonade, and I forgot to get flowers, and I don't have enough hummus. Once Shabbos starts, you can't go get that stuff. You got to put it all in your refrigerator before Shabbos, and then you have it. So when it comes to working on ourselves, we learn that it's a similar idea. Work on yourself before Mashiach comes, because once Mashiach comes and the world has sort of changed in its orientation, you'll wish that you could still be finishing your portrait, working on yourself and making a tikkun to your midot, and refining yourself, working on yourself. It's like when Mashiach comes, you've arrived, and who you are is what you are, and you just wish you could go back to the time when you could still work your being. So the question is, when is Mashiach coming? So I love this question because it gives me the opportunity to give you my answer. And my answer is that if we it's like if we're on a journey and we're asking, when are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? And what happens if someone says to you, we're there already? Like, you don't have to wait for something to happen. Imagine as if it's happened already. So it's a little bit controversial answer because we're surrounded by struggle and suffering and pain and darkness and all these things. But Mashiach is a consciousness, and it's a ability to feel the presence of Hashem and feel connected to Hashem and his Shekhinah in a particular kind of way. And in a way, like the dawn comes, and before the sun actually rises, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter until the sun is kind of really present. A lot of things going on in our world right now are already huge shifts in ways, or people have the opportunity to start shifting. And I know that many Rabbonim have already said the Mashiach is here. Used to be that the Mashiach is waiting in the doorway, Mashiach is just around the corner. And then these rabbis have been saying Mashiach is here already. What would it change if you knew that Mashiach was already in the world, that Mashiach is living in Tiberia, Mashiach is, going about his or her business, doing whatever they're doing? How would your life change? You've got to, I think, this is my personal opinion, you've got to live as if Mashiach is already here, so that you're not holding your breath and waiting for something to happen on the outside. It's about finding and activating the place where you feel connected and in contact with Hashem in a way where the gap between you and his presence is as small as it can possibly be. But that's not a complete answer. I want to talk a little bit about Menachem Av, the month of Av, and in talking about that, we'll come to a little bit more of an answer about this dates that Mashiach is going to arrive, what are we actually waiting for, and other such things. So the month of Av, so I understand that that's not a complete answer by any means, but my answer is kind of, instead of waiting, live as if we're already in the time of Mashiach. So, so feel free to interrupt me anytime you want, because I have given everybody permission to interrupt whenever they want, if you want. So I just want to talk a little bit about Menachem Av, the quality of the month and different aspects of it. So every month, according to Sefer Yetzirah, there's a particular work of that month or theme to the month. So the theme to this month is the wholeness of brokenness. That's Av, the wholeness of brokenness. So what does that mean? So it goes all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu when he saw the Yidden dancing around the golden calf, how he threw the tablets, the stone luchot, the 10 commandments, and he broke them. And then in the Aron, they put Moshe then carved out another piece of sapphire, and Hashem engraved a second time, lettering on the second piece of sapphire. But those first luchot that are broken were always very precious and were kept in the Aron, the golden container with the holy wings on the top, the cherubim. The broken luchot were always in the Aron, in this chest kind of container for the holiest things. And the idea is that there's nothing as whole as a broken heart. The idea of brokenness, tshuva, the possibility for repair, for coming back, that's all in this month. And the month of Av is this month of contradictions, the saddest day being Tisha B'Av, but then Tu B'Av at the same time. So it's this phoenix coming out of the ashes kind of thing. So what's the work of the month? It's hearing. So remember we spoke about Tammuz, that it was seeing with a good eye, seeing with a framing, how we saw things, how we framed things, how we could look and see good as opposed to bad. So the work of Av is hearing. So the tribe that is connected to Av is Shimon. So it's the idea again, Shema, hearing. Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisrael, listen, O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The astrological sign is the Leo. The letter, now this is interesting, the letter of the month is the letter Tes. And Tes is actually the first letter in the word for Tov. And in Hebrew and in Kabbalah, these are very important things. The fact that the letter of the month is the first letter in the word for Tov is significant, that even though we say the mazel of the month isn't so great, we shouldn't have court cases and we shouldn't draw up contracts in this month. At the same time, the letter of the month is Tes, which has this aspect of Tov. But what is that Tov? It's buried inside the clip. It's like the juicy fruit that's underneath the shell. So Av has this suffering and this destruction that we know about. We are already in the 9 days. We certainly know about the destruction, but it also has the new birth, the rebirth. Mashiach is supposed to be born on Tisha B'Av. So we have that. So there's this roller coaster of feelings and this negative aspect. How do we diminish this negative aspect? So the key to getting past the negativity is listening to ourselves and listening to others. The key of how we get to redemption is listening to ourselves and listening to others, not jumping to conclusions. Misunderstandings cause problems, and we're supposed to be having the patience, having the time to listen attentively to others. And we call the month Menachem Av. Suri's trying to say something. Suri, type your question and I'll hear what it is. Because I don't know, you could, I see that you just type your question. Do you see how to type your question? Because there is a ability to unmute you, to unmute you if you want. So you can unmute yourself. It's not working for you. Okay, type it in. So Menachem Av, the idea of the loving father. So whatever bad is going on in this month, the aspect of ultimately it's for our own good. It's for our own best interest. So we know that the destruction and the heartbreak of this month is because the temples were destroyed. What are the temples all about? So the temples are this meeting place between humankind and Hashem. God's presence in the physical world. The temple being a microcosm, the place where the Jewish people are serving Hashem, and in response to the Jewish people serving Hashem, which used to be when the temple stood with sacrifices and karbanot, Jewish people serving Hashem in that way, and in response, Hashem showers down brachas, not just to the Jewish people, but through the Jewish people to the whole world, the world at large. So when we mourning the destruction of the temple, what we mourning is we mourning this breakdown of this connection between the spiritual worlds and the physical worlds. This, we served Hashem in the temple in this way that he requested of us, and in turn he showered down these blessings to us that infused into the whole world. So what are we so pained about? What are we mourning? What are we crying for? What are we wishing for? What are we yearning for? So we're yearning for a reconnection of physical and spiritual, in a sense. We're yearning for this reconnection between what it is that we're yearning for, a reconnection of the world with the Shekhinah. Now, I don't really talk a lot about the Shekhinah and the Shekhinah being in exile. But really, this is, in a spiritual way, this is the whole underlining thing around what we're yearning for. Imagine that if this is one of the ways I've heard it explained, that just like Adam and Chava were a couple and they loved each other, and all couples that come together, masculine and feminine, they love each other, they come together, and when they separate, they feel like a sadness and a yearning. So Hashem and his Shekhinah, so to speak, are like a divine couple, so to speak. And when the Shekhinah is in exile, Hashem is yearning for this other aspect of himself. He's yearning for his feminine counterpart, so to speak. And the Shekhinah is absent. It's not present in the world. So Hashem is also crying for this absence of the Shekhinah in the world. And we crying for this absence of Shekhinah in the world. And there's an aspect that when Mashiach comes, and we've talked about the rise of the feminine, and we've talked about the rise of the moon, and we've talked about divine feminine energy. In a way, this is Hashem reuniting with the feminine aspect of himself present, or his feminine aspect present in the world. Now, what does that mean, Hashem's Shekhinah present in the world? It means that the divinity of God, this is kind of spiritual stuff, but the aspect of God that can be felt in our everyday life in a very tangible way is not as present now as it will be when the Shekhinah is not in exile. In other words, if you imagine a family, and there's the father who's the breadwinner, and the father who kind of sets policy in the family and makes all the big decisions in the family, and the father is there, and he's kind of this overall persona and presence who is the caretaker of the family. So that's very nice. But if the mother's not in the kitchen baking beautiful cookies and nice challah and bread and serving beautiful meals, that loving energy of the mother is not present in the home, diffusing into the home all this, love and attention. And then if a child, falls, the mother's there to kiss the child's knee and to rock the child and really give the child a feeling of being there. So when the temple stood, Hashem's presence was in the world. The Shekhinah aspect of Hashem was much more in the world, there for us to access. With the destruction of the temple, the ceasing of the sacrifices, this presence, this feminine, this loving, this, in a way, mother presence departed from the world in a way. And we still have Hashem taking care of us, loving us, but it's more distant. It's not as all-encompassing. We still have a lot of unhappy children crying, sulking, fighting, arguing, and you just want the mom to come and say, darlings, everything's going to be all right, and give everybody a big hug and a kiss, and everybody feels, you know, so much more comforted. That's the Shekhinah in a way, and that's maybe one way of understanding the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem in this other aspect, immanent, tangible, inside every detail, that we feel Hashem's present in the physical world, in all the details, in the corners of all of our lives. So that's sort of what we're hoping for and praying for. And because this is absent, this separation of Hashem and His Shekhinah, or us from Hashem, this channel between us and Him is kind of been, the flow has been sort of stopped or broken in some way, not completely, but it's not such a flow between the worlds. So therefore, we don't experience our inherent oneness with Hashem. We don't experience our inherent oneness with each other. We don't experience our inherent oneness with all people all around. And we don't feel connected to who we are, to our divine soul, to all of our aspects. We feel this disharmony. That's why we're suffering. That's why we're not united and connected. That's why we could even get sick, because from a Kabbalistic perspective, the source of all physical disease and illness is that there isn't this flow between Hashem and us, our own soul within our own body. And so during the 9 days, we feel and we cry and we mourn for this sense of separation and alienation. And this is kind of what it is that we are mourning, this separation and all of this. This is the broken heart. And it says in the Talmud that in every generation, if we haven't rebuilt the temple, it's if we personally are responsible for kind of participating in its destruction. So we need to build holy sanctuaries within ourselves, places where we can feel and try to reveal the Shekhinah in our bodies, in our homes, in our communities. And I'm going to pause for comments. I just want to make a reference. We're talking about feeling this sense of Shekhinah. So on the one hand, we say the Shekhinah is in exile because we're in Galut now. But we know that the word for Galut is Gola. And the word for Geula is spelt exactly the same way as the word Gola. Gola means exile, and Geula means redemption, and they spelt exactly the same way, except that Geula has an aleph, and Gola is exactly the letters without that aleph, and that aleph is a awareness and consciousness of Hashem. So the Shekhinah is in exile. It means that each person is living in a state of Gola, and all they have to do is draw in that Aleph consciousness into their being, and then they transform, and they've brought the Shekhinah kind of into their own consciousness, and they can independently transform so that they're in a place of Geula, like the famous story of the rabbi who, when people said, has Mashiach come? Has Mashiach come? So he said he has to go and open the window to smell the air outside, because where he was living, he was in a state of redemption, Geula himself. So talking about the Beis HaMikdash, that Tisha B'Av is the date that we commemorate the destruction of the temples, and with the destruction of the temples was this breakdown of this intimate connection between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Thanks, Corina. The upper worlds and the lower worlds, and we mourning that and remembering that and yearning for that. But at the same time, I placed on the the chat for this class a teaching from one of my teachers, Sarah Yehudit Schneider, and she did a whole beautiful teaching on the Beis Hamikdash, and she said that it is also, there's the idea that each person builds the Beis Hamikdash within themselves, and it's not only this external construct that comes down from above and comes into the world, but it's this internal consciousness that we each, through our own shift in consciousness, we each building brick by brick, curtain by curtain, plank by plank, this inner awareness of how we construct within ourselves a sanctuary. And you should look, I put the link to the video on the chat, and it's really very beautiful. And that maybe there will be, or not maybe, but the idea that there will be a construct that will exist, maybe even for the nations of the world, a place where God's presence is revealed. But in addition to that, we all build this Mishkan within ourselves through our cultivating this ability to, so to speak, host the Shekhinah, host this awareness of Hashem, host this place where we can minimize the distance between our own body and soul, our own mind and soul, our own, the different parts of ourselves. We can bring it together in a way that we can be a host for the Shekhinah. So one of my teachers has a guide for things to do in the month of Av, 10 guides to help us, do the work so we can host the Shekhinah and just do whatever we should be doing at this time. So because I said that the lesson for the month is listening, so listen to what is said and what is not said. This month is a month to heal hearing. So truly listen, and listen ask for clarification, don't make assumptions. So number one, listen. Number two, create opportunities for deep listening and sharing with others. So this is a very interesting point. Now is the time to share your pain with others and be open to hearing their pain as well. Because if you think about it, Tisha B'Av is the most painful month of our whole calendar. This is the month that connects. If we think about Kabbalistically, Yaakov was injured when he had his fight with Esav, and he got injured on his sciatica nerve. That corresponds to the date of that is the 9th of Av. So the whole battle with Esav and Yaakov fighting, the suffering of that is all connected to this time, the destruction of the temples later. It's a manifestation of that. So what is the most intense part of the pain is alienation and isolation, which is very interesting because in COVID now everybody's isolated and in their own space. But really part of where we want to go is that we connect and unite with all aspects of ourselves and other people. So whether it's on Zoom or in person. So now is the time to share your pain with others and be open to hearing their pain. Sharing our vulnerability with others allows us to connect and bond. It's the sharing of our pain and our humanness. We become close to each other and to Hashem. And this builds rectification and healing. It's very interesting because there's this famous talk on TED Talk from Brené Brown about the power of vulnerability. And we only can connect to other people when we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable. So that's a very interesting thing. Next one, guard against judging yourself and judging others. One of the reasons for the destruction of the temple was because people had sinat chinam, didn't love each other, didn't care for each other, causeless hatred. We have to guard against our tendency to cause hatred, and it comes from judging others, especially without compassion. The cause of sinat chinam is egotism. Watch for the tendency to judge others, to see yourselves better than them. Don't be jealous of others' accomplishments. Let it go. open our hearts, etc. Be careful with your speech. This is always important, but particularly now. Don't speak about other people. Don't speak negatively about yourself. Become more giving, love unconditionally. We know that the tikkun, the tikkun and the ticket to rebuilding the temple is ahavas chinam, as it was destroyed because of sinat chinam, which is hatred with no reason. So it's going to be rebuilt with love and connectedness for no reason. Now, I heard something when I was learning in a Zoom shir this week, that each temple was built on certain things and then destroyed when those things fell apart. So the first temple was really built on the Yidden's ability to do the mitzvahs, to be honoring, not to serve avodah zarah, to respect each other, not to worship, not to be involved in immorality. That's what built the Beis HaMikdash, the first one. So when those three things were no longer intact, the Beis HaMikdash broke. The second Beis HaMikdash was built on ahavas chinam, on love and unity and connectedness, but when that stopped, then it fell apart. So we have to build from this causeless love, so loving without reason, giving to people with no reason, just because. So that's, and the last thing is, meditate and be open to Hashem's presence in your daily life. And that this idea of receiving the Shekhinah, hosting the Shekhinah. This is the idea of Dira B'tachtonim, making a dwelling place for Hashem where he can come and, so to speak, put his feet up. So if we think of this idea of the Shekhinah, the feminine aspect, so, if you visit your children as the mama, you want them to serve you tea and treat you well and let you put your feet up. You took care of them, you brought them up. Now you want them to take care of you. So that's the Shekhinah being able to dwell in the lower worlds. So that's that little list, which I thought was kind of inspiring. And I'll just end with the last thing, which is about this Parsha, which is Moshe Rabbeinu giving reprimands to the Jewish people, and just how important it is to put one's language in a loving way, because we are in a time when a lot of things are going crazy, and Moshe felt it was important to say and speak and give reprimand to the people. And it's very politically incorrect in our world now to say any criticisms about anything and anyone, but Moshe had their best interest in mind, and he felt that loving rebuke was important. And in Torah, we have a concept of loving rebuke. And this whole, a lot of the Parshiot that are coming will be Moshe, especially in this Parsha, making reference to things that they did that weren't always so perfect, but we can't correct things if we can't own them, and we shouldn't be scared of loving rebuke. So that was just like a 1 minute. So I wish everyone a meaningful 9 days. I do want to make an Eicha reading here the night of Tisha B'Av. I'm looking for someone who's going to read Eicha, and we'll gather and maybe share some learning about the temple and Eretz Yisrael and everything. I'm hoping to do it outdoors on the deck in safe distancing mode. So just putting that out there. So
What's that Zoom?